Welcome back to Come Back to Nature. My name is Gareth Blakesley, and today we're going to be looking a little bit about how to use a compass and map. A lot of people sometimes kind of come around and not entirely sure how to use a map or compass. Sometimes you might have something that looks like this, which is a fairly simple map, and we're going to be using this today, actually to find my colleague Sophie. But a lot of times these maps in other directions will have a lot more detail on them. They'll have latitude and longitude on them, and they're indicated by different lines across it. And that's used across the whole of the world. So your latitude is how far north of the equator you are. 0 being at the equator, and say we're about 42 degrees north of the latitude, so that's north. You can go 42 south of the equator, and that's 42 degrees south. We're also about a longitude, which is basically the number of lines from certain points westwards, of about 87 degrees west of Greenwich Mean Time, or Greenwich. That's actually the meridian that we base all those longitude lines off of. So you've got latitude and longitude. These are imaginary lines across the whole world, and that's how we use to kind of like place ourselves in the world. But not all maps have that. So we have that aspect of things of how to find ourselves in the world. GPS coordinates are basically based off of that. But then you also have to kind of come back and have the trusty old compass, which a lot of people don't really know how to use properly. It can be very useful for finding your bearings. It can be very useful for finding north. That's pretty much what most people know how to use it for. They basically put it down on a flat surface. There's a magnetic element in the compass, and that will point to magnetic north. Now, there's an interesting thing about that. There's something called declination. And declination is sometimes magnetic north and true north, where the North Pole is, aren't always exactly the same. So in Chicago, we're about 3.8 degrees off of a true north. So when this points to magnetic north, that's basically about 3.8 degrees west of where true north is. So we would actually have to make a slight adjustment to figure out where actually true north actually is. We're not going to worry about that today. It's just something so important to know, because some places in the world, those degrees are actually larger and smaller. So it means you can have more adjustments. So if you're trying to do a bearing and you're in the middle of the wilderness and you're 10 degrees off, I think that might be a bit of exaggeration, you could be quite far off when trying to get to your destination. So what we're going to do is we're going to go out, we're going to use our map, and then we're going to go out and see if we can find Sophie on the ground somewhere. So it's important to kind of look at the compass to actually know a little bit of the anatomy of a compass. So in the middle, you do have like one beam that kind of goes across, and you have a red side. That red side is the area that will actually point to magnetic north. So that's important to know, and you also need a rotating bezel. So this is the bezel that can actually move. So I've got my hand fairly flat. I'm just moving the bezel around so that I know which actually way is north. So that's really important for us. Now, the other part of it is you can see these arrows going across. So if I wanted to take a bearing, I would keep this still and then move this the number of degrees I actually want to go to. So because the number of degrees are going around is 360, like a circle is, you can figure out the number of degrees you go to. So if, for example, if I wanted to go on a bearing of due south, that's 180 degrees. And so I would just head south 180 degrees. I would hold the compass. I'd point this where south actually is, hold that position, and then I would follow that line as I go forward, keeping the red line in line with the north. If I wanted to sort of go off at a slightly different angle, so say I'm moving a little bit to the side, so that's about 200 degrees. So if I have a bearing of 200 degrees, again, I want to hold this as flat as possible, and then I want to follow my line so I can go that. So in Sophie's instance, we've determined that her location needs two bearings. I'm going to take one bearing to one location. That's going to be on a, what did we say it was going to be? It's going to be 280 degrees from the front of the nature center. So I'll follow that to a predestined point, which is called the overflow. And at that point, at the overflow, I will then take another bearing, and that other bearing is 20 degrees. And so I'll follow that bearing, and hopefully we'll find her. Okay, now I've got what, 280 degrees? Off we go. Okay, so I'm going to turn my bezel to 20 degrees. Already found north, moving around. And now I just follow the lines this way. All right, off we go. All right, let's see if we can find her. Still on that 20 degrees, see if we can find Sophie. Oh, and thank goodness we found Sophie. Yay! You don't have to stay out here all the end. Sophie, we found you! Woo! And so that's how you use a compass to find Sophie in the middle of the woods. So until next time, hopefully see us next on Come Back to Nature.